Welcome to the SuperHero Conversations, a podcast saga with innovation leaders who will be at Supernova, the #1 tech innovation event in Benelux. I'm your host, Domenik, and in today's episode, I'm welcoming two superheroes from Antwerp, Belgium. Liesbet Boogaerts, the General Manager at BlueChem, and Leentje Croes, the co-founder and the CFO of FlyBlast. Welcome.
Hello.
Hello.
It's really nice to have you on. So I would really like to begin with the first stepping stones. So could you tell me who you are? From how did you end up in your position now?
Okay. Well, yes, I'm Liesbet, General Manager of BlueChem. And actually, for me, it all started here in Antwerp. I'm a commercial engineer. I studied here in Antwerp. I was born close to Antwerp. So yeah, I'm a real Antwerpian, so to speak. After my studies, I started with ExxonMobil. So I started with a corporate, always been in chemical. Actually, no, first in petroleum, so more the fuel side, and then the chemical side. So my first jobs were more around logistics, logistic management positions. And I think half of my career I actually spent at ExxonMobil. So different locations, started in Breda, then in Brussels, went to Antwerp, to Houston as well, back to Brussels. But then at some point, the corporate world was good enough for me, but I wanted to see something different as well. I wanted more entrepreneurship, I wanted more sustainability, and I wanted something closer to home. And this job actually checks all those boxes. So that made it quite easy for me to make that step from the corporate world into the more entrepreneurship world. And it's also a nice add-on because with the corporate background, I mean, it really formed me. I know what the corporate world is about in chemistry. And I was really curious to see what is more entrepreneurship and what the startups are about. So for me, it's an excellent add-on from that corporate world into the entrepreneurship world. And it's 3 years now. I've been in this job 3 years. I took the job over from Leentje, and I'm very happy with this job. It's really something that gives me a lot of energy. The project that you can see here are fascinating, and it inspires me every day. So yeah,
that's good.
Happy
Leentje,
to be here.
We already know that you were in the same position as Liesbet. So what came before, and what are you doing now?
So I'm a bioengineer by training, and I spent the first 7 to 8 years of my career in innovation management. I was a catalyst at Catalysti, which is the innovation cluster for chemistry and plastics. They're also situated here in the BlueChem incubator, by the way. And they, together with the sector federation, Essentia, the city of Antwerp, the province, Vito, they were actually the founders or the ones with the idea to start BlueChem. So after several years at Catalysti, I kind of was looking for more challenge. And together with my boss at the time, he said, well, hey, we have BlueChem that's about to set off. Why don't you do that and bring BlueChem and bring the building through construction and get it launched? And that's how I ended up at BlueChem. So I was the previous manager. I started with BlueChem in 2019 when the building was still being constructed. So I followed up the whole construction, prepared the incubator to launch. And we did launch in March 2020 in the midst of COVID. It was touch and go for a while because everything was being closed. And we thought, how are we supposed to launch a new incubator when everyone is being told to stay at home? But we did, we managed. Luckily, BlueChem has a lot of labs and people in the labs, they cannot work from home. So they were allowed to come in and the incubator actually managed to open. And quite quickly, we filled up the incubator. Within 2 years, it was about 80% of the labs and offices that were occupied by new startups and tenants. So that went very well. And then after that period also, I again felt the itch to get more excitement, to have a new challenge. I really like to dive all in on something and really put my teeth into something and bite into a challenge. And that is when one of the startups that was located in the BlueChem incubator, Piece of Meat. They asked me to join them. They were then on the brink of really growing, and I joined them in 2022. They grew quite fast. The team went from, I think, about 10 to 30 in a bit more than a year. But as I learned very quickly, entrepreneurship doesn't come with only highs. It comes with quite some lows and difficulties as well. And the mother company of Piece of Meat actually ran into financial difficulties and decided to stop the Belgian entity. So the Belgian entity was declared bankrupt in April 2023. So it was quite an interesting period, quite hard. It's not an easy thing to go through, although I was not a director. I did not have any say, real shares or something. I was not a founder of Piece of Meat. It was quite hard to go through. You have a team that's depending on you. You have people who are looking at you for their livelihood, their annual, their monthly paychecks and everything. So it was difficult to deal with, but I learned a lot. You have to. That's the only thing you can do in such a case. But then I also moved on because I was also out of a job and I went to another startup, molecular beer company Baron. They were also in BlueChem. They moved out now. They're in another incubator in Leuven. Yeah. But then after having had 2 experiences where I was in the management but not really a founder, I thought I'm ready to be an actual founder, and that is what led me to FlyBlast.
That's interesting story. So we heard quite a lot about BlueChem and a lot of interesting startups. So Liesbet, could you tell me what BlueChem actually does? We are sitting in this with a beautiful view and a really nice building that's, that was constructed with the help of yours. So what do you actually do in BlueChem?
Yeah, it was actually good construction because it's a good building indeed. We support startups. We are an incubator for sustainable chemistry, which means that we create a safe place where startups can grow. And we would like to accelerate that growth. And startups, if they apply with us, they can come here and rent a lab or an office. And from there, they can start their developments and their innovations and new technologies for chemistry. So that technology is something that they develop themselves. What we do is we try to unburden them and help them with all the rest. So giving them the facility. So we have a very nice infrastructure, as you say, a nice building. Setting up a startup in chemistry, as Leentje already said, highs and lows, it costs a lot of money. So we can also help with a fund. We have a BlueChem Kickstart fund that is provided by the city of Antwerp, and that helps them with purchasing the installations of a lab. If they rent a lab from us, then they can apply for that subsidy. So apart from the infrastructure and the money, the subsidy, what we also do is a lot of matchmaking. So we try to give them help also in expertise. We try to give them expertise and advice around a lot of topics. But as we're only a small team, BlueChem team, it's just 3 people, we need to surround ourselves with experts. And that's why we joined forces with some partners. We have strategic partners like Deloitte, Port of Antwerp Bruges. Then we have some silver partners that can give more hands-on help, like NLO. They can give help around patents. We have a company, Media Mixer, that can talk about the storytelling. There is also a company that can do the recruiting around safety or industrial upscaling. So we really do the matchmaking so that if they want to step further, we can really guide them and push them to that next level. Because what the actual aim is, they come in early stage and we push them actually to a larger stage. So here we have kilo labs, and at a certain point, they need to move on to bigger and larger installations and to start to test at a larger scale. So what we do is try to bring them indeed to that phase, and then at the end also help them with their exit, because at some point they will outgrow us, and then we can help them to the next phase, to a scale-up location, which we can also offer here in Antwerp.
Fantastic. And would you say that's, you're talking about chemistry incubator. For a person that is not in the chemistry field at all, what are maybe some interesting examples that are chemistries? Because I imagine that chemistry is, mixing two kind of chemicals together and you get another chemical. But as you mentioned, there's beer involved, there is flies involved, there are different aspects. What are the different kind of aspects inside the chemistry field?
Yeah. it's a nice variety. That is really cool to see that there is indeed different technologies being developed. For us, we tried to actually focus on 4 teams. There is 4 focus teams that were set by Catalysti at the time, because they said if we want to write the chemistry of the future, we really need to concentrate on 4 teams to solve the problems. And first of all, that is circularity, where waste becomes your resource. So you're going to close those material loops. And we have a couple of companies that are working in those areas. They, for example, they will take captured CO2 and convert it into CO, which is another chemical product which is much more worth. So they upgrade indeed that waste, and it becomes a resource for the chemical industry. And so that is a very nice aspect that we support. Then there is also bio-based. There is a lot of bio-based in the company FlyBlast, which Leentje will explain you later. Then we have also a focus team around process intensification, which means making your processes more optimal. Optimize your processes so that you can produce more out of less. More products with less energy, with less waste. And then finally, also advanced recyclable, advanced sustainable. And this is developing products, for example, designed to recycle. So develop your products so that at the end of the life cycle, you can easily recycle them. So those are really the teams that we would like to attract companies. We would like to attract projects that can work on these teams and that in the end, indeed, can make our chemical industry more sustainable.
Wow. I think it's really interesting, and we'll definitely kind of go in depth later on. Leentje, when I was preparing for this episode, I read what company you work in, what company you founded. And I was a bit like, is it true? I was a bit shocked. So you produce insulin from flies.
Yes, we do. Indeed. So what we have done is we have taken a particular sort of fly. It's the black soldier fly. It's an amazing creature because it doesn't sting, it doesn't bite, it doesn't attack crops, it doesn't carry diseases. So it's a very nice and safe sort of fly. And we have genetically modified it, inserted the human insulin gene, and now we have black soldier flies that actually produce human insulin. And the idea is that in this way, we have another way to produce insulin that is not only a lot cheaper, but also a lot more sustainable. Because the flies, and you need to feed them to grow them, but they actually grow on organic side streams. So you can use waste streams from industrial processes to feed them, and the flies turn that into valuable products like insulin. And insulin is one example of what we could do, but we could have the flies make basically any product that you can think of. Insulin, collagen, astaxanthin, you name it. The flies are very, very versatile and they can do a lot. Wow. They're the heroes, actually. If you're talking about heroes.
Okay, so our podcast is called SuperHeroes. Maybe we should have renamed it Super Flies.
In our case, the flies are the heroes, yes.
So tell me, you're working in a molecular beer company, and then the switch to producing all kinds of sorts of really cool things from black soldier flies. What is the pathway? What is the thought process? How did you end up doing it?
Well, at the molecular beer company, so I am a bioengineer by training, so I do like to understand what we're doing. I don't know the full extent. I'm not a full-time scientist anymore. There are some details that are beyond my grasp of understanding at the moment because I don't have the time to dig into everything. But at the molecular beer company at Baron, I was also the COO. But I did most of the finance as well. So it's actually through that pathway, being able to set up correct operations for a company, make sure the company runs smoothly, that all of the finances are taken care of. That's basically what I do now. It's just the R&D that's being done. The technology is different. But whatever a company is doing, you don't just need the products and the technology to work. You need a smooth running company as well. That stays the same, whatever else it is that you're doing. And that's my part of the job. The technology thing I leave to our CTO. He's much more capable in that department. I will make sure that the company runs smoothly and the finances are in order, and the technology I leave to him.
Fantastic. So you would say that you had this technology before before you joined, you knew that you could do something from flies, and then you kind of joined as a co-founder to actually bring this technology to market?
Yes, so we are actually 3 co-founders. My other 2 colleagues are, let's say, the specialists. So our CTO is a specialist in genetic modification. He was one of the first in the world to work with transgene chicken and snakes. So he's quite a pioneer. I already knew him because we worked together at Piece of Meat. And then my other co-founder, he is the black soldier fly expert. He had the first black soldier fly company in Belgium in 2012, Liesbet. He was also one of the pioneers in the sector worldwide. Still is one of the best known people in the business. When the CTO had the idea, we could do that with flies. He had not thought of any particular fly kind yet, but I told him, if you want to do something with flies, I know who you should talk to. And I put them together, and that's how we got the ball rolling. It's like Liesbet said, it's very important, the connections. You need to find the right people to work with, and that can really make or break an idea or a company. Finding the right people is worth so much.
Mm-hmm. Before we kind of dive into making a startup or founding a startup in Belgium, I would really kind of dig into the FlyBlast strategy, because I think that there are 2 kind of main things that could scare potential investors or clients away. First, insects. A lot of people are scared of insects. You mentioned that black soldier flies are the most kind of they're really good ones. They're the puppets. They're the golden retrievers of all the insects. And the second of all, modification, genetic modification. So kind of the combining of the insect part and the GMO part. It's kind of a bit kind of tricky. How do you answer to those kind of allegations or notions that are thrown into your side?
Well, we know that the breeding of the black soldier fly can be done completely safely, because there are about 120 companies worldwide who already breed the black soldier fly. The biggest one is situated in Denmark. They have a facility where they breed 36,000 of these flies per year. And it's all done safe. They don't escape. They're managed well. So we know that can be done. And on the genetic modification part, we know that it's a technology that's a lot of people are not enthusiastic about. But I think, like with every technology, you need to put it in some kind of perspective. We are not modifying flies and then sending them out in nature. No, we're keeping them inside. We're keeping them contained. They cannot overtake the natural population or the wild type flies. No, they're nice and safe inside. And it's like with any technology, technology in itself is not bad or good. It's useful. You can use it in a bad way, but then that's a human error and not a technological one. So if you use it correctly, then there should not be any problem.
Fantastic. I think I really believe, Leentje, you told it this kind of answer so many times. You have it on point, to every kind of allegation thrown towards your way.
Well, I also accept that some people will still not like it. Anyone has the right to their own opinion, then they don't have to work with us. I'm just saying that we believe that there is more than enough reason to say why it can be done correctly and safely. If people say we still don't like it, no bad feelings. You do your thing, we do our thing, and everyone can stay happy.
Fantastic. Liesbet, let's talk about, making a startup in Belgium, starting with an idea, insights. I would say one of the most industrialized, one of the most kind of, I would say, corporate countries in Europe. There is this notion that Belgium was one of the first ones to adopt the Industrial Revolution after the UK. There are a lot of industrial-minded people. There are a lot of big corporates. And coming from that field, how do you feel like Belgium has evolved? Is it a good place to start a company?
Yes, definitely, yes. And I think I need to start by saying that we work a lot together with the industry here. As from the start, it's been decided that putting together startups is creating a lot of synergies, so it makes a lot of sense. But even linking them with the industry, with the industrial partners, makes it much more powerful. And that's what we experience. So yes, Belgium and Antwerp is the best place to be located for chemistry, because we have the biggest chemical cluster of Europe. And those corporates, they are really a fan of BlueChem themselves. They like to see the innovations and the technologies that are being developed here. So at the sideline, they all look into what's being developed. So what can they adopt, or what can they work with? So you can see there is a lot of cross-fertilization here in the building, but also in the area between the startup worlds and the industrial world. And that is really powerful. That is why I think Belgium and Antwerp, Flanders, is one of the best places for a chemical startup to be based. And we've seen a couple of successes already. And as I said, after BlueChem, they can go and move to a scale-up location, which we have here in Antwerp. There's two. There's BlueGate Antwerp, which is here, the site we are based, or you can go to NextGen, which is the scale-up facility at the port of Antwerp-Bruges.
So you would say that if you're in kind of the Benelux area, and you have an idea connected to chemistry, Antwerp is the place to start. Because of the big kind of corporations that could actually first help you with their expertise, and then later on they're the most ideal customers to buy in. Let's compare the mindsets from coming from a corporate kind of world, from Exxon, one of the biggest corporations out there, and the startup mindset. It's quite different. Do you think that Belgium is in the evolvement process in a sense that more people will start doing startups? Because if we compare it to the US or some more startup-ish countries, it's still quite young. Or you think that Belgium has reached its potential in talented people making startups, and it will not evolve further?
It's definitely evolving. Yes, I think when we graduated, we wanted to work for corporate. That was per definition. Whereas now young people, some want to work for corporate, but many want to work for startups. And they even want to accept lower benefits for that, because it's a lot of experience. As Leentje said, you learn so much by working at a startup. So I think it's definitely evolving, that our talent is not just by definition going to work for a corporate, but some are really interested to work for a startup. Or some like me, they start with a corporate and evolve to a startup, or the other way around. So definitely evolving. I can really tell in all those years that I've been in my career that it really shifted. And that is a nice thing to see. And I can feel that it's really starting already from an academic point of view. Also, students are promoted and much more stimulated to think as an entrepreneur, much more than when we were studying. And also with the new studies like STEM, which really starts at high school level, that really benefits. You can really see that people want to create something and they want to develop something. So I can feel that it's evolving. So yes, Belgium it may be slower than the US, definitely, but we are getting there.
That's good.
Much more enthusiasm.
That's good to hear. And would you say that, public policy and kind of political decisions are a huge part of actually forming one industry or another? And I would imagine, if you're kind of entangled in the corporate world together with the politicians, the corporates already bring so much, taxes to the country. Why should we, give that money away to some, crazy ideas like making insulin from flies or making molecular beer? Do you feel like the politicians and the political decisions inside Belgium are more on the positive side and they're doing enough, or you think that there should be some change still to be made?
Well, they stimulated a lot already. I mean, definitely the city of Antwerp, they're a big fan as well. They're one of our shareholders as well. So initiating this whole concept, so that helps. Essentia is also the main shareholder. They're the federation of the chemical industry. And also from Flanders, there is a lot of support for this initiative. So I can already see that there is a lot of promotion done, a lot of stimulation from the government. But of course, they can always do more. But they will do more because they can see if you want to grow your industry, and definitely in this context, the context we are living, we really need to focus on innovation now. That is our USP at this moment in Europe. We really need to focus on technology, on innovation, making sure that our industry is indeed ready for future, is future-proof. And I think this is something that politicians understand. And I feel that there is a lot indeed support from that part, yes.
That feels good. That feels good. And Leentje, let's kind of dive into your founding stories. Would you say that, founding a company, in Belgium, you see a lot of companies starting, but you are now in the process. I think FlyBlast is a bit over a year incorporated. Would you say that what are the things that, have gone really smoothly, and what are the biggest kind of problems or kind of mishaps that you encountered along the way?
Well, I think what went very smoothly, but of course, we already knew BlueChem and Liesbet, is finding a good place to actually start. If you're a startup and you need to set up a lab, it's not that easy to find a good space to do that. And that's where BlueChem has been a godsend, because you do have these labs where you can move in quite quickly and get started. The one thing that you have as a young startup is you're given some starting capital and people expect you to come with results quite quickly. You don't have X many months to take your time, find a space, get a lease, buy equipment. Time is a valuable thing. And having a place like BlueChem where you can just basically from one day to the next get started is worth a lot. I will say that in some regions in the world, it is easier to get investor money. Especially in the States. And I have to say it is a bit more difficult in Europe. Europe's a bit more reserved, a bit more low risk. But I do have to say, getting grants, that again is, to my opinion, easier. It's quite regulated, but the regulations are clear. You know, if you want to apply for a grant, what you need to do, what the criteria are, how to get to them, how to apply. And that is also very helpful. And I'll take non-dilutive funding over dilutive any day. So that's something that I would say is a plus comparing Europe to the US, for instance. And then that's also how FlyBlast got started so well. We were able to start very quickly in BlueChem. We got a grant from the Flemish government with some early start on capital, also from the Biotop Accelerator from BIP. And that is what got us going and actually enabled us to get to our proof of concept within 6 months.
Wow. Okay. And what would you say that was a bit complicated or along the way of the first kind of proof of concept? What was the main mishap that you encountered? Main problem, maybe technology-wise, maybe operations-wise, maybe financial-wise?
Well, I would say initially we started with an idea that we would produce insulin and molecules like insulin, so recombinant proteins, and bring them to the market of cultivated meat, because that's where the idea came from. We had our CTO, Paul, and I, we worked at a cultivated meat company. We saw that it was that we were buying these kinds of ingredients at very high prices, but you want to grow meat at multi-tons at the lowest possible price, and the price of growth medium and the price of the production of cultivated meat is still one of the biggest hurdles for the sector to really break through. And that's the problem that we wanted to solve. And I think the biggest hurdle that we had is that we were so fast in developing our technology, but the market is still developing for cultivated meat. It is emerging. It had some very difficult years in 22, 23, 24. They were hoping to kind of see it go up a bit, but it's going slowly. So we were quite ready to jump into a market where the market was not ready for us. But then you have to figure out, okay, what are we going to do? Because investors said, well, it's a very nice problem you're going to solve. And everyone is hoping and looking forward to cultivated meat breaking through their barriers and going mainstream. But none of the investors wanted to put more money on that gamble. They wanted to first see the market and then put in more money. And then we came to the realization, we don't have time to wait. So we had to go through the process of adapting our strategy and choosing another market to target first. We'll keep track of the cultivated meat market because we still want to really enable the whole sector there as well and play our part, but it's not the right time yet. So we needed to find something else to do or another market to target while the cultivated meat markets goes through its transition period.
So you would say that, you had this huge ambition to enter the not really formed market of artificial meat.
Yes.
And you decided, we need to make progress now. And you decided to kind of pursue the insulin insulin production. Would you say that?
Well, our current focus now is on animal health health and animal feed. Because we had the proof of concept of insulin. Insulin, of course, is also used to treat diabetes, but going into biopharma for human health, I mean, that's just something from a very different dimension. Biopharma is like that would be a company in its own, and we would need a whole different team for that. It's very long-term, very difficult. But then going into animal health and animal feed, that is something that we do see we could do on a shorter term and bring realizations to the commercial market much quicker. And that has now been our refocused. That's also the difficulty. We had a platform technology. There were 101 directions we could take, and choosing is a very difficult thing. Mm-hmm. If you don't choose, you lose. If you don't choose wisely, you lose. And choosing is a very difficult thing.
So now, could you explain what is the focus with kind of animal-based? Do you produce food for them? And maybe you could take us a bit through. I'm just so curious. Yeah. You have this genetically modified fly. How does it, get into something and produce something? Could you take through that kind of journey?
I would say we see two options, because we can have the fly produce molecules like insulin, but then for insulin to really be used to treat diabetes in dogs, for instance, you would need to extract the insulin. So insulin is a quite high value product, but that would need to be extracted, purified, and then it can be administered as a medicine to pets, to dogs. That's also still something that we're working on, the extraction. If you want a pure molecule extracted from the flies, we know it can be done, but it's some development work that is still ongoing. But then we said, hey, the black soldier fly is already used in a lot of feed markets for livestock, for pets, for aquaculture, for poultry. There are also a lot of health-promoting products, for instance, enzymes that improve gut health in chickens or in livestock. And we can have the flies produce these. And because the flies can be fed to the animals, we don't need to extract it at all. Skipping a step and making sure we can go to market easily. We have an even lower cost of production because your how would you say it, your feed ingredient or your molecule that has a positive health effect on the animal is in the fly, in the larvae that is eaten by the animal. So that's easier, faster for us as well. And we're doing both in parallel. So we can have the flies produce molecules, enzymes, proteins that improve the health of animals, and we can feed it directly to the animals, or we can say we have a product that is not ingested, but that is, for instance, it would need to be in a medicine form, and we can also have the fly produce it, but then we have to extract that molecule. That will take us a bit longer. Okay,
so now you would say that you basically, you cultivate those flies, and animals actually eat them. To have a nutritional value, otherwise could be done, chemically, but you do it organically at a lower cost.
Yes.
Fantastic. I think it's really, really interesting how you would never imagine something that could work, and it actually works. But I have not eaten them, so I don't know if they work.
I have not eaten a fly either, to be honest. That's not what we're growing them for.
I think maybe in the future when we don't have enough meat, everybody will start eating flies and scorpions.
It's still quite a mental barrier for people to eat insects, and not just the flies. There have been a lot of startups working with crickets and everything. Yeah. It never really took a real flight, pun intended. But I think at some point it will come, or the people's minds might become more open. But we're not there yet, anyway.
I'm definitely open. I will not do it soon, but maybe in the future. But I'm open in that sense. I would like to kind of dive into the topic of women in tech. I'm really in favor of having more women and even men who are not in the STEM going into STEM, because I have a feeling that even a slightest understanding of a technical field could benefit not only in the, I would say, the technicalities of the things that you do, but it also gives you a perspective. My question is simple. How do we get more women into STEM, into technology, into startups?
Yeah, it needs to start from early stage. And I'm really proud. I have 2 daughters and they both study STEM. So how did they end up there? I think we talk a lot about technology at home. And so the big brother was also doing STEM. So the sisters were also following him. So we need to trigger that from early age, making sure indeed, give them a platform, give them a lot of examples. And then they need to maintain it, of course. And at some point you will need to show and educate them and see that it is sometimes really practical and really interesting what, for example, chemistry can do. It's not just the molecules, but it's look at the technology, what it can develop to. So I'm very open for schools to come and visit and to see what's going on. Chemistry is not just that boring, not to understand a course, but it can also be very exciting. So I think in April I will have 2 classes here. Come and visit us. And I will show them around, and I hope I spark some of that enthusiasm so that they can see that, you can really have impact with technology and with new innovations and with startups. So I think that the thing is you need to start early stage, making sure that they have indeed the interest, that they know what it is about, and that it can be very exciting, actually.
I agree. I think it starts at an early age. If you don't go and study STEM, you will never end up doing something scientific or technological. So I think that's an important part. But I also do really believe that through the generational changes, I think the children growing up today will have a lot more role models in science. You see that if you compare to 30 years ago or something, the amount of women active in science and technology or in major functions, there are a lot more of us, thankfully. And children will see that and will see what the possibilities are as well. So I think the combination of both, I hope it will lead to success and to more girls in science and women in science.
We love it. We love it. We absolutely need it. But if you would take, 30 years ago, would you say that it has, drastically evolved and kind of evolved in a sense that more women are choosing to study? Do you see more startups having women co-founders? And what's maybe the take on this startup side? Because even at conferences, luckily at SuperHero we have quite a balanced program, but we still see like most of the founders in startups are men. What do we need to do to kind of infiltrate that not only technological kind of curiosity, but also going into the startups?
Difficult question. I think it's it's not really clear what we need to do, because otherwise we hopefully would have done it already and would have made sure that we have more women in founders and in startups. I think it probably comes down to the work-life balance. I will be honest, it does take a lot. Being a founder, or basically it doesn't have to do anything with being an actual founder, but just being there to get a company going from the very beginning. It's a lot of long hours, a lot of busy days. And I would also only be able to manage it because we have help from the grandparents with the kids, and because I am kind of a freak in planning and organizing. Otherwise, my day would be chaos. But it's something that you need to manage. But it's the same for my husband. Every weekend we put our calendars side to side and say, you will be home early that day, I will be home early that day. But it needs to come from both of us. If I would be alone, I would not be able to do it.
What do you think? Have you seen kind of more women going into startups over the years?
Still too little. I think we can do better there. But it's probably what Leentje said. It's evolving in the right direction. A lot of companies, they know we are all in situations of dual career. So you need to facilitate that as a company. You need to be flexible. And I think if the company offers that flexibility, then it can definitely work. I'm sure of that. But there's still some room for improvement there. Yeah, we can do better.
Definitely. And what would be your... maybe your practical advice to all of the women listening to us, young women are always young, so young women who are, maybe they have an idea, maybe they have the curiosity to start, maybe they don't really want to start, but they have the feeling that maybe in the future they want to start. What is your kind of advice to women listening to us?
Just try it. If you don't try it, you will never know, and better to try and fail than to never have tried it at all. And usually for every problem, there is a solution, but you need to address the problem and then work out the solution. If you don't try, you will never get to that point.
Yeah, I think I agree. Don't be scared and surround yourself with good people because you're not alone. I mean, even if you want to do something, you need to be surrounded with the right partners and the right good people. And yeah, just do it. Yeah.
Fantastic. Let's talk about more on the general side of founding a startup. Liesbet, you have already seen quite a few founders, and maybe you could kind of bring out the dynamics inside the team. What do you think is the actual answer of all of the success teams? What do you see that unites all of the success stories? And what do you see that, is the driving force behind the failures inside the startups?
Well, I see that those founders are really resilient. As you can see, a lot of highs, but also a lot of lows. And I have a lot of respect for those founders because indeed, after a low, you need to find that energy again to climb out and continue. And I see that is, for me, a successful founder is a resilient one with a lot of energy and a vision. And then, yeah, as I said, surround yourself with people that have other skills because you can't have all the skills together. So I think for me, the visionary founder, indeed, a resilient one, with a good idea that can just go. And then at a certain point, he misses something in the organization. Yeah, you need to extract that extra talent. You cannot do everything by yourself. And then you can see success.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So if you have an idea, if you have this kind of resilience, if you are a nice founder, then maybe, and if you have a chemistry-like idea that you want to develop, then you can come here in BlueChem and ask for Liesbet. And you can help with all of the boring business stuff, and that person can help and kind of focus on the R&D.
Yeah, correct. And so if they come with us, they have already a company started. And they can indeed, as Leentje said, start really fast because we have furnished labs and unfurnished labs. But even then, we call them plug and play. So all the techniques are ready. So if they have the equipment, it's just a matter of plugging it in and they can get started. And it's that speed that you can give them that really helps them because they call it the first 5 years the valley of death. And we really want to bring them there over that valley and make sure that they survive. The word survive is also something that is important. We just want to make sure that they have a bigger chance of success. We want them to survive by just offering the facilities, connecting them with the right people, and indeed helping them with some general services. That's what we do.
Fantastic. And Leentje, the same question to you. What you also have seen quite a lot of founders, and you've been in many teams. What do you think is the main differentiator between the ones who kind of succeed and the ones who kind of quit?
I would kind of compare it to a good marriage. If you respect each other, you accept that sometimes you have a difference in opinion, but you can listen to the other person's opinion and then find mutual ground to move forward. And if you can, how do you say it? If you can tolerate that maybe the other person might have a bad day or does need a bit of time. Things are hard from time to time. Sometimes people just need to be left alone for a few hours to give them some peace of mind. It's the same at home in a marriage as it is in a startup, and with not even founders. Even if you have a very small startup team, we are now a team of 7. It's the same few people that you work with every day. You need to be mindful of that. Not everyone is having a super day every day of the year. If someone is having a bad day, either try to accept it or try to help them. That goes a long way. If people feel like they're valued and understood, then that does a lot.
Fantastic. And what do you feel like is the reason or the factor that drives the failure of the startups? The same that you said, if they're not tolerant enough, if they're too kind of aggressive in their team, but what else would you say?
I find it hard to comment on that because the failures that I have seen or actually was a part of, it was due to external factors, like the mother company running out of funds. It was out of our control. We really tried everything. We tried to find additional funding ourselves, but there's only so much you can do. So it was not because of any failing of the team itself or of the internal relations or dynamics. It was external. So it's difficult for me to say. I have not firsthand experienced that, for instance.
So maybe the lesson that you can learn from that is that there are often factors that you cannot control and can only accept in the failure or even in the development process. So you often need to be accepting of the facts and quite flexible as well. As you mentioned, you switched quite rapidly, quite a lot. And I think as you also mentioned, fail fast and so on. Let's talk about the future and the plans.
Yes.
What are the plans of BlueChem for the future? What are you trying to achieve? What is your mission?
Yeah, we actually have a bright future, I think, because we are fully occupied here in BlueChem, almost fully occupied. Of course, it's always in transition because, as I said, some startups will move out and then there is space for new startups. So that some will grow and move out. Definitely, some are already in transition to step out. Some are halfway out already with one technology that works and that they can scale up. And some technology can stay because the R&D is not yet finished. It's all clear. But we can feel that there is still a lot of need for extra laboratory, for extra lab space. And that's why we decided to expand. So we're going to build a second building. We're going to open it up in 2027. So we're starting building in a year from now. And we really feel that, as you said, the success really exceeds expectations. It filled up really rapidly as from the start, and now we're full. I mean, this is fantastic. So we need to really take that momentum and be ready for the future. Be ready for more startups. And we know Belgium is maybe limited, but we want to internationalize. I mean, we have already 2 international startups, and we want to really be go outside more, across from the borders, make sure that also in our neighboring countries, they know BlueChem and they can come here and develop further. So yes, that's...
Fantastic. That's actually quite exciting. Just out of curiosity, will the building be near here?
No, it will be at Next Gen. So it's going to be at the scale-up location. So we think just to make sure that ecosystem is really nice here in Antwerp and makes Antwerp even more attractive, we would like to be closer to the port of Antwerp-Bruges for the more industrial clients. So there they are really close to everything what they need. And that makes it, just one nice ecosystem. And just on top of that, we also have very good connections with the academic world. We have Blue App next door, which is the research institution of the University of Antwerp. And that makes it a nice cluster. So we call it a journey. So every startup can really start early stage at the research stage. Once they have a company founded, they can come with us. We do the incubation part. They can step out. They can go to a scale-up facility. And also there we can still support them. So in all those phases of the journey, we can actually support companies, which is really unique, a unique setup in the world.
So you basically take a hand of a startup since a very early stage, and you kind of...
We guide them.
You guide them. Fantastic.
We guide them, yeah.
And Leentje, for you, what are the plans of FlyBlast? What are the main kind of missions that you're trying to achieve several years from now?
We now have our proof of concept. We have shown that our technology works. So what we now really want to do is set up collaborations with customers, work on molecules specifically on their requests. So say, hey, can your flies produce this for us or that for us? That's what we want to do so that we can hopefully in a year or 2 years actually see products produced via the flies go out on the market via the customer.
And who are the customers of FlyBlast?
Mainly,
who are you looking for?
We're, like I said, mainly focusing now on animal health, animal feed additives, these kinds of things.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So they would be like big animal...
or small. We don't.
Small. Okay, so you don't discriminate.
We don't discriminate. A big company, a small company, a startup company. We're happy to work with anyone who is interested in our technology, what it could possibly do. We have proven that it works, but there are a lot of, let's say, limitations that have gone unexplored. We have a good grasp on what we know will definitely work, but there are some more exotic things that we actually believe could be even bigger potential that we have not fully explored yet. So hopefully we can also find some customers who believe in that as much as we do and push further into what can be developed.
Fantastic. And I think you can be both reached on LinkedIn.
Yes.
Fantastic. So all of the customers, all of the startups want to join BlueChem, and all of the livestock companies can also write Liesbet and Leentje. We will finish this conversation off with a quick round of questions. Since our podcast is called SuperHero Conversations, in the end of every podcast, we ask, what is the superpower of yours? What are you really good at?
In person or the company?
You as a person.
I think planning an organization and being supportive and listen, taking care of people and companies, making sure that they feel good.
Fantastic. And Leentje, for you?
Getting things done doesn't matter whether it's something financial, operational, supply chain. If we have an issue, something that needs fixed or needs to just get done, people know, ask Leentje, I will just make sure it gets done and we can move forward.
I think it's a magical person. I think every startup needs this person who...
That is correct.
But the problem is
I can confirm.
Then I get asked a lot of things to get done and it never ends.
And the last question... maybe the hardest one. What is your dream?
The dream?
Yes.
Also personal, company.
Yes.
Well, I really hope, it's in the professional atmosphere, but I really hope that we succeed and that we make our industry in our world a better place. I really hope that my children indeed can live in a better place or in a good place. And we have to make a lot of efforts for that. And I really, really hope, it's my dream, that we are all, that we all want to make that effort to make sure that we can end up in a nice world.
And Leentje, for you?
My dream is to see FlyBlast become a real trustworthy and established company, with products on the market, a lot of happy clients, maybe even seeing where one of our products solves a sustainability issue, where we can make sure that some products that are now too expensive for a lot of customers to buy, that we can make it cheaper and more available, just solving any problem that is out there maybe.
Fantastic. Liesbet and Leentje, thank you so much for this conversation. I think it was fascinating. It was insightful. So, dear listeners, if you want to meet people like Leentje, like Liesbet, definitely come to Supernova, and they both will be there. So, thank you so much for the conversations, and see you soon.
With pleasure.
Thank you. See you soon.
Bye.
Bye.